everyone. Welcome. We have a panel today of myself. I am Marnie from Treat SMA. We have got Marion Main, who is a physio at Great Ormond Street Hospital. We have Portia, who is here from SMA UK, another SMA charity. We have Casper, who is from Fundacja SMA Poland, and we have G, who is also from Treat SMA. We would really like to start out by just saying thank you for joining. We are here to support you. In the UK, we refer to the SMA community as an SMA family. We are always here to support each other and others. So if you come over to the UK, you will be a part of that family, and we will always be here to support you. So we are going to start with Casper, who is going to talk you through the registration process and access to the healthcare system. So I'm going to hand over to Casper now.
Hello, everyone. I'm Casper. I have two daughters, and the younger one has SMA. I'm originally from Poland. I'm one of the co-founders of SMA Poland, of Fundacja SMA. But we live in England. My daughter goes to school in England, and she basically, she identifies mostly like England's her home. Why did we move here? It's because we needed, we thought that care and support would be much better in the UK than in Poland, and it is the situation is still there. So for many SMA families, relocating to the UK would be optimal, would be a better choice than decision to stay in Poland. And UK is a very welcoming country. It's where you will feel at home. After a while, you will really feel welcomed and at home and supported. It's a country where you do get support. We will be talking about the support. My colleagues will be talking here about this support. You will learn in more detail how what the country provides, and provides a lot. But for now, the big question is how to get to the UK, how to arrive. So the UK has announced, belatedly, but still, that refugees or people escaping Ukraine are welcome in the country. There is a system, though. It's not like in Poland or in other European countries where you can just cross over and register. UK is not in the European Union, and you need a visa. You need a permission to travel. Visa is like a permission to travel. So the visa process is on paper it's simple, but it's a bit time-consuming and quite. It requires quite a lot of papers, quite a lot of documents for you to provide. There are the mechanism through which you can come to the UK. There are actually two pathways. One is to go if you have a family living in the UK, a family member, then they can invite you. But this is not something I would like to focus on today, because then if you have a UK family, they will be able to guide you. But if you don't have a family, there is a new route called Homes for Ukraine. For this, there are two components required. There should be a family in the UK who offers you a home, who volunteered to welcome you. For example, they can give you a flat or a home, and they have to register online on the government website. And then the second part is when you apply for a visa. You have to apply for a visa. You have to indicate that family. You have to list the name, the surname, of course, the date of birth, the identity document number, ideally passport number, nationality, the rights to, and for example, previous surnames, and maiden names. So there are a few details that you must be aware of, must know of your host. And you need to upload or to share the identity documents, a scan of, let's say, a passport or a driving license of your host. Then, once you do that, you wait for the government to either give you green light to come, and this happens. The automatic green light happens only if you have a biometric Ukrainian passport, an international Ukrainian passport. So if you do have it, you have an option. You should upload a copy, a very clear copy of that passport, of the passport page, on the application form, and wait for the decision. The decision should come. The government bragged that it would come in a couple of hours. From the experience, it will be rather like a couple of days. I've had to complete an application form for a Ukrainian family a couple of days ago. 2 days ago. There's no green light as yet. The form is still being processed. So the link where to upload the form where to complete the form is on our website ua.fsma.pl, and you can browse to United Kingdom, living in SMA with SMA in Europe, United Kingdom. Then you can read about the process. The application form is in English only. It is not accessible for people, let's say, it's not suitable for screen readers, for people using assistive technologies. So it might not be very easy for everyone to complete. But so if you need help in completing it, please reach out to us, reach out to Treat SMA, reach out to myself, reach out to SMA Poland, and we'll try our best to help. If you do not have a biometric passport, you will have to indicate this on the form, and you will have to select an appointment at one of 2 visa centers in Poland. One is in Warsaw, another one is in Rzeszów. Application slots, appointments are available usually within in the next 3-4 days. So it's pretty quick. The appointments last shortly. They are only there. There is no interview. You don't have to talk to anyone about your visa. Basically, you are called in to give your fingerprints and the originals of the documents of your passport or Ukrainian ID card. That's how the process looks like. You will need to wait for the decision afterwards, and I guess it will take a couple of hours, a couple of days. Now, the tricky part: who will host you? How to get a place where you live in the UK? So here, our colleagues at Treat SMA, they have a few families who have volunteered and offered either a house or a flat share or a house share or a flat where you can stay. And it means it means for at least 6 months. At least 6 months is what you're guaranteed, then you will have a place to stay. And what else, we'll talk about it afterwards, but for now, you can be assured that you're not landing on the street. Regarding the travel itself, SMA Poland can help. If you are in financial difficulties, we can buy you a flight ticket. We can buy you a flight ticket from pretty much any town in Poland to the required place in the UK. So don't hesitate to approach us. But if you do not have financial difficulties, please do buy yourself. Then this will help us to keep the money for whoever really needs. About the travel process, I hope it's it's still very early. I hope you are getting what it is all about. It's about the visa process, that is completing application form, waiting for the outcome, and then arranging travel. Uh, I wish I knew more details. We had more details, but it was still so early in the process that there are, I mean, there's still not enough information available. We don't know the timelines and so on. It will get clear in the coming days. For now, I think I will give the floor to my colleagues. And if you have more questions, please put them in the Q&A box. We will be answering them at the end of the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Casper. Dri, would you like to talk about treatment options in the UK?
Добрый вечер всем. Я буду говорить вообще-то на английском, потому что мне так легче. Но хотел сказать вам, что мы можем даже помочь немножко с языком, как тут общаться, и одних вас не оставим, будем так говорить. Right. So let's talk about treatments. As you may know, there are 3 treatments available for SMA in the UK. One of them is gene therapy for very young children. So if you have access to refugee status or whichever way you come to the UK, you will have access to the healthcare system, and through that you can access those treatments. So as I said, gene therapy mainly for young children within certain weight limit. The other treatment we have is Spinraza. So it's the antisense oligonucleotide, which will, in essence, fix the SMA gene, which is faulty we have. And the third one is Risdiplam, which is oral treatment. And for many people who have issues with the spinal access to their spine, fusions, scoliosis, etc., there is a chance to access Risdiplam. All 3 treatments have shown excellent efficacy in the clinical trials, in the real world. I have personally, my child is on Spinraza. She's been on it for the last, I think, 4 years now, 4 or 5 years. Lost the plot of it. And she's doing really well. Excellent treatment for those who can get access to spine and who don't mind a little bit of a needle poking around. My other friends got access to Risdiplam. I think Mani here, she's been on Risdiplam and she looks brighter over the last few months. So it's probably doing some wonders as well. And I know about the gene therapy. Many children who did get it showed some remarkable improvements. Of course, treatments and access to them via NHS is one thing, but also you have to do some physio, and there will be discussion. Marion Main will contribute to it later, but without the physio, really, treatments is just it's not enough, put it that way, if you want to have a maximum benefit. I think depending on the type of SMA, depending on your age, depending on your spinal issues, you will consult a local neuromuscular team once you're over here, and they will advise which way to proceed forward is the best. But yeah, I guess if you have any questions specifically what you may expect, what you might want to, how you would like to proceed, I think it's best to sort of work in the Q&A session here. I'm done, Mani, I guess.
Thank you, Dri. Thank you. Marion, would you like to speak about physio and occupational therapy?
I think it's important to understand in the UK, the system of the health service is in 3 parts. The first part is the community, where you need to register when you arrive with a general practitioner, a family doctor, who then is the main person to refer you to other services. You will then have a local hospital who will take care of your urgent care needs and any problems that you have in terms of respiratory initially, any broken bones. But then after that, you will be referred to a neuromuscular service. And there are neuromuscular services around the country in all parts of the UK. Now, you must understand that now the health service in the UK is managed separately in the 4 countries, and you will not receive the same service in England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. But the neuromuscular services at specialist hospitals are available in all 4 countries. There are more of them in England, but that is only because England has a much bigger population and therefore there are more neuromuscular services. When you are referred to a neuromuscular service, you will have regular assessments by all the doctors you or your child needs to see, so that you will be seen by a neuromuscular consultant who is usually a neurologist, but you will also have access to a respiratory consultant, a gastroenterologist, orthopedic surgeons, and many other specialities depending on the needs of you or your child. Now, you will, at the neuromuscular service, always be assessed by a physiotherapist who works in that centre. But that is not the physiotherapist who will see your child in the community. Not all neuromuscular centres will have an occupational therapist. In the community, you will see an occupational therapist for equipment, things like seating, standing frames, or that might be a physiotherapist. It might be an occupational therapist or a physiotherapist who may organize your wheelchair. Every adult and child is entitled to a wheelchair. If you are not walking, you are entitled to an electric wheelchair. But the quality and the level of electric wheelchair is very variable around the countries. You will also be entitled to a manual wheelchair in many cases. If you are or have a child with type 3 who is walking, then often it is difficult to get an electric wheelchair for that child, but it can be done through local services with assistance. There are many different conditions on how you will access physiotherapy around the 4 countries. Some children will see a health service physiotherapist regularly or a community physiotherapist. Some children will see them more in the school system, and this is very common that children are seen in school by a physiotherapist who will then teach staff at school to do physiotherapy for your child. Now, this is dependent also on the school and the school system, so there are other things that you need to be aware of, which I'm sure will be discussed. We then have to consider where you are living and how you access your environment. Now, an occupational therapist, usually a different occupational therapist, will assess your environment to look at your access needs, to look at how you are managing in terms of getting in and out of a wheelchair, how you are managing to get up and down stairs if there are stairs in the place that you are living, and how you can get in and out of the building. Obviously, electric wheelchairs are heavy, and if you are being offered accommodation with steps or not on the ground floor, then somebody will need to help you to make adaptations or find different accommodation. The amount of physiotherapy that you will get is very, very variable. The neuromuscular service physiotherapists will not see you on a regular basis. They will see you as you need to be seen. They will also arrange for splints, things like jackets, foot splints, and other orthotics are made usually in the neuromuscular centers, but may be made locally. And that is all part of the health service. You do not pay extra for these. But how you get them and how quickly you get them, again, is variable. So there is no one answer to how much physiotherapy or occupational therapy you will get. Unfortunately, it is totally dependent on the area you are living. And we cannot tell you where that you will live, because in some areas, some services are better, but not all of them. So you will find that where schools may be better, that other services are not quite so good. Now, everybody is here to help. We will write letters of support for services, particularly for things like wheelchairs, for access to school. There is a lot of help that you can get. But in terms of therapies, and that includes speech therapy and dietetics, it is very, very variable how often you will be seen and when. You will always have an initial assessment by a team, but follow-up from there may be very, very different. But the neuromuscular service is your main point of contact to help get more service. The charities are there to help and support, but in terms of day-to-day, your family doctor, your general practitioner is your first point of contact. So it's a little confusing, but there is information to help you. Marnie?
Thank you, Marion. I'm now just going to talk about mobility and access to education, under 18 education. So,
Honey,
yes, sorry.
sorry, just to interrupt, I just a thought occurred to me on the back of what Marion said. Whilst the services vary across the country, they will be better to what people are used to in Ukraine. Okay, it is definitely will be an improvement. Off you go, Marnie. Sorry.
Thank you. Thanks. So I'm going to start with mobility, and then I'm going to go on to education. So mobility in the UK, as Marion has just explained, is that if you require a wheelchair, you are entitled to one. And as she also explained, it may vary what wheelchair you will receive. One, depending on your needs, and two, depending on the area. However, in terms of mobility within society in a wheelchair, again, it varies. There is a lot of access, but there's also some places that are not too accessible. And in terms of mobility in a car, we have a scheme called the Motability Scheme, which allows for an adapted vehicle, and you are able to access this through your PIP or DLA allowance if you are entitled to it. These cars will be adapted with a ramp and clamp down system. However, if you cannot access one of these cars, if you are close to city or inner city places, generally you will find that the public transport is rather good. All buses have ramps. Majority of trains have ramps. Again, it will vary area to area. Rural areas may not be quite as good in terms of public transport, but in towns and cities, generally the access to public transport is rather good. And again, as I said before, they all do have ramps and a space for wheelchair users if required. I'm going to move on to education. The panelist who was discussing education is unwell tonight, so I am going to cover it. So please bear with me whilst I read through the notes that they sent me. So for education, your child will be able to receive an EHCP, which is an Education, Health and Care Plan. These identify your child's needs in terms of education, and this should entitle them to the right provision they need in order to support them within their education. Examples of this would be a teaching assistant to write for your child if they are unable to write for themselves, equipment such as an appropriate height desk, a computer and toileting facilities, including hoisting and transferring equipment, as well as the training in order to do so. It is the responsibility of the local authority to carry out an EHCP. And in order to do this, you can request one. Now, requests can be made by parents, by the school, an interested party, or a paediatrician, a social worker, and it must be a simple written request, and it's sent to the local authority to initiate the process. It may be that they carry out an assessment, working with the school or nursery. They may also consult your doctor, and it will be decided within 16 weeks whether an EHCP plan will be made for your child. Every education provider has responsibility to make reasonable adjustments for your child to access education. The only times this may not happen is if the school is unable to adapt due to the age of the building. For school-aged children, the school SEN coordinator, known as the SENCO, will be the first person to talk about your child's needs, and every school should have one of these. They are there to help if you think your child needs special learning program, extra help, to work in a smaller group, or for some observation in class or at break. As well as help taking part in class activities, extra encouragement in their learning, communicating, and or support with physical or personal care. The benefits of an EHCP is that they get the provision they need in order to access education under health and social care. I'm really sorry, I've lost my place. The outcomes will explain what the child will be able to do thanks to the plan, and details of what help the child will get in school and the personal budget arrangements. This will include school trips and physical education requirements. Sorry, Portia, I see your hand up.
Yes, hello. I was a primary school teacher before I worked for SMA UK, so I might be able to help on some questions. There is also an option to go to a special school if the child has severe and very complex needs, and you think that maybe a mainstream school wouldn't meet those needs. You can go to a special school. Also, my son, who is 5 and has SMA type 1, he is in a mainstream school, but his one-to-one support isn't funded by social care. It's funding by continuing healthcare. So he actually has a nurse, a qualified nurse, go to school with him on a one-to-one basis. And the school aren't responsible for paying for that nurse or for the insurance or for any of the training. So if the children are more affected by SMA, it may be that they will qualify for continuing healthcare, for support at school and also for support at home. We have a night nurse that looks after him at home at night, as well as the nurse that goes to school with him.
Thank you, Portia. Casper?
Just wanted to say, remind people that there is an option of Russian translation, Russian or Ukrainian translation na the channel, the technical information. Если вы хотите слушать на русском языке, то есть сейчас опция настройка, чтобы можно переключить на русский язык или на украинский перевод. Thank you.
Thank you, Casper, and thank you, Portia. Your input on that was really helpful because, yeah, when I was at school, I didn't have a DHCP. They weren't a thing. I just had a statement, which I think is quite similar.
Yeah, that's very similar. Yeah.
So also with getting to school, if you do not have transport, you can get a personal transport budget, and it is funding to help get your child to school or college. Correct me if I'm wrong, Portia, but that could be a taxi, a private taxi to school?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and it allows you to make the flexible travel arrangements rather than the school buses or something that may not be applicable to your child. Go on, Portia.
I was just going to say it's the same for transport to hospital. If you don't have transport to hospital through your GP, you can access a service called patient transport that will take you to your appointments.
Okay, thank you. Portia, is there anything else I've missed on that topic, because that's the end of my notes?
It's a very big topic, schooling, and there's a lot of decisions to make, and there's a lot of different routes that you can take. So I would suggest that when you are in the country, and you may need some more individual support with that, which SMA UK could help you with, and I'm going to talk about that now. So I'm going to share my screen, if that's okay. My name's Portia. I work as advocacy lead for SMA UK. Let's share my screen, see if that works. Marnie, can you let me share the screen?
Has that worked?
I think so. Let's see. Can you see the spinal muscular atrophy logo? They're good? SMA UK? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, good. So this is my son here, Ezra, pushing our dog. Ezra has SMA type 1, as I said. The wheelchair that he's in is a powered chair. They're made in Bristol. It's called a Tiny Tracks. Now, this kind of powered chair you wouldn't receive on the NHS. It was privately funded. But in the UK, we have a lot of charities that are very, very helpful in funding powered chairs for children. So we have the Tiny Tracks. There's also another one for younger children called the Whizzybug, which I'll show you at the end. And you can, SMA UK can help you access these charities, can help you fill in the forms to get the funding for, I mean, this chair here costs £6,000, but we didn't have to pay a penny. We can fundraise for it. Okay, so spinal muscular atrophy. I'm just going to take you to the website. Hopefully, can you see the website? Have a thumbs up if we can see it. We can't see it. Okay, I've got two screens, so it's very confusing. Okay, can we see it now? Thanks, Marnie. Okay, so Spinal Muscular Atrophy UK, they provide, or we provide, masses of information. There is a whole library of information. Unfortunately, it is all in English. But I'm sure you could copy and paste and use translation services on the internet to translate them. So we have information about living with SMA, support. We have community networks that link up our communities together. Lots of information about treatments and research. SMA UK work hard to advocate for treatment for all. We work with pharmaceutical companies looking at new treatments that are coming through the pipeline. We have a say in their trial design, and we make sure it's appropriate for our community in the UK. And we push for access for all as soon as possible. We also work with the government. If there's a new legislation that comes out that affects the SMA community, we make sure that we have a voice in that legislation, making of new laws and systems. So if I just show you the support section, so our outreach services, click on there. This is a very important number. I think if you are new to the UK and you need any kind of help with SMA and the issues that you're facing, if you phone our office, they can do really individualized support, or you can email them by clicking this button here. You'll be taken to a form that you can fill in, and that will go into our offices and they will contact you. So we have support where people can come and see you in the home. Unfortunately, due to staff shortages and COVID, face-to-face support isn't happening at the moment, but there's a lot of support over the phone and through Zoom conversations we can do to help families. If we go back to the Living with SMA section, let's have a look. So we have lots of community networks, so you can join up with like-minded individuals. We have an adults group, we have a young persons group. Here we go. There's a massive amount of information on this website. I go back home. Here we go. Now in the Living with SMA section, it's divided into children, teenagers, and adults. If we go into the children's section, I'm acutely aware that any family fleeing Ukraine is going to be dealing with a lot of mental stress, and mental health is very, very important. So in the health and well-being section, there's a lots of information. This says recently diagnosed, standards of care, the kind of care you should expect in the UK. Stuff on physio here, posture, movement, exercise, breathing, and for parents, talking to children. So I would really recommend you have a good look through the website, and we have links to other charities as well. SMA UK work in alliance with other UK charities that help those living with rare diseases. Oh, here we go. Let's trying to find the mental health part. You do need to take a while to have a look at it. Being a teenager there. Sorry. Oh, here we go. So there's some advice for therapy, counselling. This is for young people, but each section will have the same. So there's charities that you can go to, numbers that you can call for support with your mental health. So, I mean, that's our website. As I say, it's very big. But I recommend you take a bit of time to look after it. But the most important thing is that number under the supports section. And just come out of there. Okay. Okay, and I've put a few more links in here. There's the Carers Trust. And to be honest, if you Google in England, charities to help with disabled children, there's a lot of UK charities that help disabled children. This, if you need support as a young carer or a young adult carer, these guys at the Carers Trust are really great. And you can put your postcode in when you know where you're living and find out a way they can help. Can you see that? Let's go over here. Can't see that, sorry, here it is. The Carers Trust. So they can help. And also if you ring SMA UK, they can link you to other UK charities that they think would be helpful for you. And I found this one especially for refugees. Oh, sorry. Here we go. So there's even a charity for mental health support for refugees and asylum seekers. It's one thing we're really good at is supporting and helping people who are having any sort of struggle, be it with the disability or your mental health, or finding other people to link up with that are like you, that you want to share experiences with. Yeah, I think that's us. Sharing, sorry. How do I do that? Sorry.
At the top.
Share, I found it. There we go. We're back.
So as well, I think with charities, there's a lot for wheelchair funding, isn't there?
Especially for children. Yes, it's not so great for adults, I think, but there is a lot of support for children.
Yeah,
and it's something we're trying to advocate for at SMA UK is improved power chair support for adults.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to show you the WYSIBUG. Did you want to see the WYSIBUG?
Please, yes.
Let's have a look at the WYSIBUG. I've got to do it all over again now. Okay. Here it is. Can you see the WYSIBUG? Yes. Okay. So this wheelchair is designed for children from about 18 months to the age of about 5. My son had one. They make them, in fact, the WYSIBUG and the Tiny Tracks, the one you saw my son in, they're both made in the southwest. So this is made in a town called Bath, and the Tiny Tracks is made in Bristol. Now the WYSIBUG is great because you can loan them. So once you're in the UK, they're a charity and you just apply for the WYSIBUG and you get it for free. And when your child has grown out of it, you give it back. So unfortunately, they can't loan WYSIBUGs outside of the UK, but once you're here, you could get one. And this WYSIBUG, it transformed our lives because it enabled my son to just explore his surroundings, which is how you learn at that age. And it goes at a safe speed and it teaches them the fine control you need with a joystick to control it. And my son has SMA type 1. He's very severe, but he was still able to fully control the WYSIBUG with quite expertise. And because he's had that practice, now he's got a bigger, faster chair. Everyone is just amazed at how good he is on it. So yeah, I highly recommend. The company is called Designability, and you can have a look at their website. Okay.
Thank you, Portia. So I think at this point we're going to open the floor for some Q&A.
Excuse me, may I say something before we have Q&A? All right, because all right, we did not touch the subject, and I apologize to everyone, but I'm driving in the moment, so I'm not seeing the full agenda because we worked on it like until very late. Whether we'll be touching the subject of benefits and social support and financial support, because this is a burning question from everyone, from families. So is someone, will be someone talking on it, or shall I say a few words on it?
Do you want to go ahead, Casper? Portia, you might be able to help as well.
All right. So maybe I'll just, yeah, it's the UK. I mean, when Ukrainian families land in the UK, it's not that they are only will be getting a house or a place to live. And they will not have to fend for themselves. They will have financial support from the state, because the legislation is that families will first of all have full access to job market. So you mean like if you arrive from Ukraine, you can legally work in the UK, but also you have access to full system of social support, and that means support families who struggle with money. They will receive funding, and there are different funding mechanisms, and you have a right to access all of them. First of all, if you are a child with SMA, then unless the child is walking, then it will be classified as having a severe level of disability and high level of care. You will be receiving so-called disability living allowance. That's the total amount combined should be approximately £500, between £500 and £600 a month. And this is irrespective. This is the money for the child, and that's you're entitled to in any way, in any case, irrespective of your earnings. Then, if one of the parents does not work, is a carer, then can apply and receive carer's allowance. That's another approximately £300 a month. That's given until you decide to work, in which case your carer's allowance gets reduced, or if you earn more than the allowance, then it's taken away, right? Additionally, if you have a child with a disability, or you are a disabled adult, you get a special allowance on the so-called universal credit. This is a mechanism of providing extra money to low-income families. It's difficult to work out the exact amount because it varies, it changes. There's a formula with the different allowances for adults and for children, and it all depends on the income and on savings. But there is extra money that you will be getting if one of the household members has a disability. If a disabled child, there's another couple of £1,000s a year that you will be getting for it. If you, after the 6-month stay with your host, and unless of course the host agrees for you to stay even longer, it's up to the host. The government pays the host in a way some small amount of money for the flat. So if the host does not agree for you to stay, you can look for a flat, for a home outside on a commercial basis, and you have a right to access so-called housing benefit, or it's part of universal credit these days if you apply for it. But this is, again, the government will be covering a large part of the rent on your house. A large part means, like, depending on the area and the rent you are paying, it could be even the totality of the rent of your house, the totality of the rent you pay. So basically, there is no risk that you will end up with absolutely no money. There is absolutely no risk. If you work, great. The UK is a country where you have right now, you have several hundreds of thousands of vacancies at any given moment. Hundreds of thousands right now, hundreds of thousands jobs are open, right? So you can just, if you feel like, you apply. Not all of them require knowledge of English. Many of the jobs are done by people who do not speak English, who speak poor English. Several million people living in the UK are people for whom English is the second language. It's not the first language, and myself included. So there is absolutely no, just want to be assured, you will have a much better conditions, much better support from the state here than you would have it in Poland, not mentioning Ukraine, right? So this is important, very, very important that you remember that, right? Okay, thank you, Marnie. Now I think we can giving the floor back to you.
Yeah, Portia's just got
Thank
her
you.
hand raised, so I'll pass to her.
Yes.
Also, Casper was talking about your disability living allowance. If you are assessed as having top rate allowance, so if you or your child doesn't walk at all, you can also access a mobility part of that allowance, where essentially you will get given a car, a lease car, for free. They pay your insurance. They pay for any, if anything needs fixing, it's all paid. They pay your tax. So essentially, if your disabled child is over 3, or if you're an adult, you may also be able to get a car.
Yes, exactly. It's just a sort of a car that you just pour a fill up fuel and drive. No worry.
Yep, I've
You
got
don't have
one.
to worry about the
Great.
car. And I'm in the one right now. So it's always a new car. You get a new car every 5 years. Yeah, mobility adapted, wheelchair adapted cars every 5 years. If it's not a wheelchair adapted, that's every 3 years.
Mine's not yet. I need a wheelchair adapted one. I'm carrying it at the moment.
Yes.
That'll be next.
So the social support is really top notch, right?
Really
If we combine it with the fact that everyone with SMA, pretty much everyone can access one of the available therapies in the UK, be it risdiplam, Spinraza, or gene therapy. I mean, they like all the therapies are available for all ages, including for adults with SMA. That's very good. That's really like becomes one of the best countries, best places to live for people with SMA. So over there, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, shall we go to questions?
And questions can be written in Russian or in Ukraine. I prefer Russian if you possible. You don't have to write in English. You can write questions in Russians. We'll translate them.
Okay, the first question we've got, because we've got some through in English, so I can read these out, is, and G actually has replied to this already, but we'll say it for everyone else as well, is what city in the UK would you recommend for living with SMA? And G did respond basically stating that the bigger cities are better because there's more adaptations and large hospitals. So places such as London, Birmingham, Manchester, Liverpool, Newcastle or Sheffield. But there's also possibilities in other places. Is anyone else got anything to add on that?
I would say proximity to those big cities, if you're not in one, is quite important, because there's quite, at the moment, living with SMA, you have lots of different professionals, clinical professionals involved. So it does involve quite a lot of traveling to that specialist hospital. So I live about 2.5 to 3 hours away from London, so we have to travel in to that hospital. It would be better for us if we were a bit closer, but we're by the sea, so you know.
The next question is, what social package does the UK provide for refugees? Is there the possibility of free rehabilitation?
Shall I answer that?
Pardon, sorry?
Shall I answer that?
Yeah, go for it.
So Casper already covered the social packages in the respect what's the funding is available, which universal credits, disability living allowance. Once you're here, you're basically treated as equivalent to the citizen. In terms of the free rehabilitation, there is a degree. There is a degree which of rehabilitation which can be provided through local physiotherapy, but it's very limited and varies from place to place. However, there are bucket loads of private and paid for physiotherapists. So you either have to learn how to do physiotherapy yourself, more or less, or just work that way around, work with what's available. But it's not a free rehabilitation, how I would classify it.
We have our physiotherapy comes in 6-week blocks, so we'll get and at the moment actually it's not even with a qualified physiotherapist, it's with an assistant physiotherapist who gives us 1 session a week for 6 weeks, and then we have a 4-week break, sometimes more. I think the availability of NHS physiotherapists, as I'm sure Marion would agree, in the community isn't excellent. and their understanding of SMA isn't brilliant either.
I think when it comes to therapy, there are two aspects to this. Firstly, the NHS, since COVID, has greatly reduced community services across the board. This is not just physiotherapy, this is dietetics, this is speech therapy, and it has been reduced greatly in the last 4 or 5 years. You will and you are entitled to see a therapist, but how often is variable. In the acute situation, if you have a chest infection or a broken bone or a problem, then you will be seen. But for rehabilitation ongoing, it is very, very variable. Now, as I said before, the neuromuscular centers will all have physiotherapists who understand SMA, who have treated many children with SMA, and they are a big resource for you. They will give you exercise programs. They will give you ideas tailored to your individual child. And that will also be passed to your community or private physiotherapy team. So there are plenty of available information. It's just how you access it and how much time an individual therapist will give you in the NHS.
I agree.
I would just like to add, in case there's anyone who will be accessing adult services on here, is that I see a physio every 8 to 12 weeks. They go through a little mini kind of assessment with me to see how I'm doing on the exercises they gave me in the previous session. They then go through some exercises and show me and my carer how to do them, and then we go home, we do them, and then we see them again in 8 to 12 weeks to see how I'm doing and how I'm progressing. And I'm in the north of England, so it varies place to place.
I think it also needs mentioning, it's Casper here, that the healthcare, access to healthcare in the UK does not depend on the fact whether you work or not. It's unlike in the majority of European countries where you need to be working, to be employed and registered as and paying public health insurance contributions to access healthcare. In the UK, uniquely, everyone who is in the country legally and even illegally has a right to access healthcare, to be treated, to receive therapies, and basically it's about all therapies that are available on public healthcare in the UK. So that's important because that's one of the questions we have been asked with relation to any country that we recommended people to relocate to. So whether I can be treated, whether I have to work, do I have to be employed somehow in order to be treated? And we say, no, in the UK, you do not. You just go and register with a local general practitioner, local doctor, who will refer you to a neuromuscular center, to a hospital where you need therapy. So you do not even need private health insurance. It's the public health insurance. Public health is NHS, National Health Service is very, very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next question asked is, Casper, you may, Casper and Gia are probably the best to answer this, is after some time in the UK, when the refugee status is expired, what should be done for staying on the therapy? Are all therapies accessible by public healthcare system without any limitation by age or type of healthcare? And what type of healthcare insurance is needed for adult patients?
As we currently, the government has agreed or is allowing people fleeing Ukraine to stay in the UK for up to 3 years. So you can stay there 3 years. For these 3 years, most likely, but it's very difficult to predict right now because legislation changes every couple of months. Legislation related to the right of stay, and definitely every couple of years. But with a great degree of certainty.
I think since
Settle in
Casper's kind of,
here,
Casper, you're
then
breaking out,
you
mate.
get ground to a different. You have new grounds of thing. Okay, sorry. Maybe I'm right. Okay, so the thing is, if you start working here and being employed, there your grounds of staying in the UK are different. You are no longer seeking protection from the state, protection from war. You're not escaping a war, but you are now here for economic reasons, for like staying for economic purposes. So it means like you're working here. So you might be able to stay here much longer as long you are as you are legally working. This will depend. It is perhaps too early to say right now. The country is not known for kicking out large numbers of people. Like we are not talking about that thousands of people or tens of thousands can be kicked out at a time. It's unlikely to happen. So you can consider it like relatively safe to be here.
And so to add to the rest of the question, the therapies are accessible through NHS. All three therapies are accessible with some limitations in terms of the age and etc. Because if you're an adult, who's, I don't know, 25 kilos in weight, you cannot access the gene therapy because it's above what it's safe. So that best to be consulted, which therapy is best for you, is best to be consulted with your neuromuscular team once you have it. And you don't need actually health insurance for access to treatments in the UK. NHS is the free of charge at the point when you require it. So you don't have to have a private medical insurance to access any of those treatments. They are available here for free.
G, correct me if I'm wrong as well, but I think the only other age limitation is with Diplom under 6 months old. Is that correct?
There is some limitations on the risk Diplom, and there is start stopping criteria under managed access. But broadly speaking, is that most of the people within with SMA should be able to access one treatment or another. They just need to get hold of a neuromuscular team, and then they can these options can be discussed. And again, like Casper said, I would not worry too much about stopping 3 years' time as a refugee. By then, you probably acclimatize it, and there will be different ways of looking into things.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, what do you do if you don't know English? This is one of the factors stopping us from going to the UK. Are there courses to study online?
So you're looking at the person who studied German in school up to the age of 16, then has been picked up from a lovely warm place in Donetsk, thrown in the middle of London, and says and was told, we must sink. All right, and the best way to do it, you either study it online with some friends, watch lots of TV, try to make the things, speak to everybody in English, kind of just put yourself out there, learn, and you will learn it within 2 to 3 months. You'll be able to go to supermarket and have a conversation with the cashier. In about 6 to 9 months, you'll be all right. So I would not worry too much about English. It's very easy for people to pick up. Easier than learning Russian, I promise you. I tried to teach my 6-year-old child Russian. She is refusing.
I think children are even quicker sometimes.
Children are the best.
Yeah. When I was a teacher, we'd have children come into my classroom with no English at all. And they would sit and not say anything for, 3 weeks. And then by the end of one term, they were completely involved. It's incredible.
Yes, it's exactly how it happened to me. In school, first term of school was a nightmare. By the end of a year, I was writing essays.
Yeah.
I had quite a lot of carers.
Also, I think worth mentioning that there are courses of English for people who do not speak English. They are run usually by local authorities in areas where there is a large number of people who do not speak English at all. But as a person who arrives to the country, you normally have access to such courses. They are for free. They're usually for free. They're not really high quality, but they can get you really acquainted with the basic concepts of English within a span of weeks. So, but yeah, there are courses there.
So there are also a couple questions in the chat, Moni, and I think they are in Russian. So shall I do them, because I can actually. So the first question from Marie, and also a similar question from Tanya, about can we bring the families, myself, husband, mom, dad, sister, and the other one is similar to SMA adults with the mom and dad, I believe. And the answer to that is, in principle, yes, you can come here as a family. I am not sure whether you can, how males, dads, if they can come from Ukraine, cross the border, if they will be allowed out of Ukraine because of the age or whatever. I've seen some people, some male adults being refused to leave the country. So that needs to be sorted out there at the border. But in principle, there's nothing stopping you. If you can get a visa, there's nothing stopping you from coming over as a family, getting accommodation as a family, and getting support as a family. Generally, in this situation where parents provide care, they act as a carer, and this should allow for the both parents to cross the borders and carry on as a whole family. Also, Tanya added to this, if they can get treatment for SMA, and we already discussed it. The answer is yes. Once you're here, you should be able to get one of the 3 treatments. Also, Valentina asked the question if she could do, if the spinal surgery is available in the UK, and if there is any rehab afterwards. So again, the answer to this, yes, the spinal surgeries are available, and there will be certain amount of rehabilitation and physio afterwards. I believe there is a waiting list, and it all will depend on your neuromuscular team recommendation. And how quickly this is going to happen, I do not know, because it varies from hospital to hospitals. But the answers to all those questions, yes, you can come as a family. Yes, you will have spinal surgery. Yes, you can. And yes, you can access to SMA treatments. I hope that covers it all.
Can I just say a word about the spinal surgery? One of the things about spinal surgery is, for a long time, the UK were putting in the growing rods, and the small children were getting these growing rods, which were French, but there was a lot of problems with the rods breaking, and they still have not been approved for use in the UK, although some other countries are using them. There is a system whereby you can put in a rod, but it means an operation every 6 months to lengthen it. So that is happening for some of the children. But spinal surgery is very much a case of, if it is needed, you will get it soon. They cannot leave you if your spine is changing very quickly, if you have pain, or if it is impacting on your respiratory function. So usually your spine is seen every 6 months, but if it starts changing quickly, they will see you sooner, and they will make decisions based on how the spine is changing. If you come and your spine is already quite severe, then they will consider putting you as urgent. So you would not wait a long time if your spine needed to be corrected quickly.
Okay, thank you. We have got another question here as well. If you're an adult with SMA who is going to work in the UK, what could be done to legalise a family member who is not working but doing care?
So assuming that you're coming from Ukraine, both you and your caregiver should get a refugee status and just carry on as Caspar discussed earlier. If you are not coming from Ukraine, this is probably not the right webinar for you right now, but you should seek advice from your local embassy.
Also, I will add, I'm an adult living with SMA in the UK. I get funding for carers. You can get this through 2 channels, either through a social worker or through continuing healthcare. The fact that you work does not impact on either. You may have to financially contribute if your funding is through social care. However, that is worked out based on how much you earn. So if your family member is coming over to do caregiving, that's absolutely fine. But you may also be entitled to some funding to give them a break so that you can have a few care hours weekly in order to give your family caregiver a break. I think that's right for children as well. Is that correct? That families can get some care hours? Yeah. Okay.
There is also another question in the chat again in Russian asking, is it possible for an adult patient to come by themselves, and is it possible to find a personal assistant? So again, the answer is yes, it is possible for the SMA adult to come in on their own, and once they're registered and everything is settled in, there is, through a system of social services and OT, there should be a way to get personal assistance. You can hire personal assistant, but there are maybe other mechanisms to get access to one. So the answer is yes, possible.
Yeah, so you would either get funding to employ privately and you would be classed as the employer, do the payroll and all that, which you can get help for even if you employ privately, but you can also go through an agency whereby you pay an agency to basically send you a carer. When you first get here, that might be the easiest thing to do, because in order to get a carer to employ yourself, you're going to have to put out job adverts, do interviews, do criminal background checks and all of that, and that does take a little bit of time. So it might be good to start out with an agency and then move across to private employment if that is what you wish to do. But you should get a social worker who will advise you on all of your options. From my screen, that's all the questions I've got. Is
Maybe
there more in chat in Russian?
If I could add something, it's Caspar. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. If there is a question about assistance, personal assistance, especially for adults, yes, they are available. But if you are, if it's something extremely important to have personal assistance, then I would say that you could look into Nordic countries, into moving rather to Sweden, Norway, Finland, Denmark. We have options in Denmark right now, but be mindful that you will be getting a personal assistance, 3 of them, 6 of them, round the clock care, but you will not be getting a therapy for SMA. So these countries do not provide personal assistance to people over, they do not provide, sorry, SMA treatment to people over 18. So something like, I mean, it's your choice. You have to decide what is more important to you. Thank you.
I would also like to add, going back to a question earlier about learning English and all of that, is that you're finding quite a lot of parts of the UK, there is a bit of like Ukrainian people already in the UK. I'm sure you'll be able to link up through your community. So you will have support in terms of that. At the moment, the UK are showing a lot of support for Ukrainian families and will want to help. So please don't worry about that. You'll find that people will be patient. They will help you learn. And please don't let you struggling with English put you off coming, because there will be a lot of patience and a lot of time for you to learn English if you wish to.
English is the least of your worries, guys. Seriously. There are lots of things, lots of logistics you need to worry about. There will be lots of logistics to deal with. English is not going to be one of them. There are people living in the UK who haven't spoken English their entire life and they still living here just fine. So I would not worry about it. Plus, also, if you are in the UK, you can always call up one of our Treat SMA team and they can go hold of me for help. So, you know, we can do it together. It's, let's say, don't let English be a barrier. Plus, anywhere is better than at the moment what's happening in our country. So, yeah, just get yourself sorted. If you can come over here, if you think coming over here is a good idea, take a chance. I came here to study English 25 years ago. I don't know, maybe more. For 4 weeks. That's a very long 4 weeks. I don't see any questions. I don't see anything in the chat.
I was just going to say, I think that's it for questions, unless any more quickly come through. I would just like to say thank you to everyone who's been on the panel today. Your insight's been fantastic, and thank you to Victoria, who's been our translator today, and thank you for everyone who's attending. I really hope you got the information you were kind of looking for. However, please do not hesitate to contact either ourselves at Treat SMA, Casper at Fund Your SMA, or Portia at SMA UK, and we'll be more than happy to help where we can and advise. And we just want to send all our support and our love to you all during this time, and just say that we are here for you all.